Farnax the Vermilion, fourth eldest of the Skybreaker brood, had reached that awkward stage of draconic midslipe when pillaging felt tacky, hoarding lost its shine, and even the annual roast-a-night for charity banquet no longer thrilled him. He wanted a purpose, something with a pension plan, something his mother could brag about at the volcano spa. One dusky evening, while watching swallows loop outside his cavern, inspiration struck like a lightning bolt to the frontal lobe. "I can fly," he mused, flaring his wings in the glow of his treasure hoard. "Others cannot. Therefore, I shall monetize this discrepancy." Thus was born Farnax's grand entrepreneurial vision, a flight school for landlocked folk. He spent a weekend designing promotional posters, huge sheets of bark, because paper tended to curl in the heat of his breath. In swirling calligraphy, they promised, "Soar like a dragon. Defeat gravity in 10 easy lessons. Success guaranteed." Beneath the asterisk, in letters so small even ants squinted, he added, "Guarantee refers to the certain passing of time, not necessarily to student progress. Bring your own lunch. Non-refundable enrollment fee. Payable in gold, chocolate, or instrument-quality maple." The advertisements worked. On opening day, the meadow below Farnax's cavern swarmed with eager trainees clutching picnic baskets and dreams of altitude. There was Sir Bromley of Bumbershoot, a knight whose armor squeaked like distressed mice. Myrtle Teapetal, a halfling mother of 6, arrived armed with sensible shoes and a desire to impress her children. Greta Snagglefang, goblin courier extraordinaire, planned to cut delivery times by acquiring wings. Professor Thaddeus Quill, lecturer in aeromancy and relevant breezes, came to gather first-hand data. A trio of gnomish siblings turned up largely because they had misread flight as fight and smelled potential chaos. The group craned their collective necks as Farnax descended, scales glimmering, wings stirring hurricane-scented gusts. Gasps rippled, one gnome fainted politely. "Welcome, diminutive future aviators," Farnax boomed. "Please direct all applause toward my entrepreneurial spirit." He landed, shaking the ground. "First, the safety briefing. Do not stand under me if I sneeze. Any questions?" Sir Bromley raised a gauntlet. "When do we practice saddle placement? And will you be providing complimentary anti-incineration charms?" added Professor Quill, twirling his mustache. "Patience, ground crawlers," Farnax purred. "We begin with fundamentals." He produced an enormous scroll, unrolled it, and quite daintily tore off a rectangle. With surprising dexterity, the dragon folded the sheet into a sleek dart. "Observe the artistry." He flicked a talon. The paper airplane glided, banked, and landed on the knight's helmet with a whisper. Silence trundled across the meadow, followed by a collective double-take. Myrtle cleared her throat. "Is that origami?" "Not just origami." Farnax clapped his foreclaws, producing a thunderclap. "Aerodynamics distilled to its purest form. Before one commands the sky, one must first seduce it with parchment." Grita's green brow furrowed. "We paid in gold teeth to ride thermals, not fold stationery." Sir Bromley's armor squealed in indignation. "Sir, I was promised soaring." "You were promised a flight education," Farnax corrected. "Lesson 1, the Luft-de-Lutefold. Please take out your paper." An orchestra of grumbling began, but the students complied, largely because the non-refundable clause glowed ominously on a billboard nearby. Sheets rustled. Quill inspected his with academic skepticism. The gnomes tried to eat theirs, they claimed a fibrous diet. Farnax strode among them like a crimson schoolmaster, adjusting creases with a massive claw. Occasionally, a slip of fiery breath singed edges into decorative lace. The first launch attempt went exactly as physics predicted, when amateurs hurl crumpled hopes into a headwind. A flutter, a nosedive, then shame. Murdered disappointment thickened. Myrtle glared up the 40 feet to Farnax's face. "Sir, my children can fly further after eating bean soup." Farnax swallowed a defensive puff of smoke. "And how did they learn about bean-propelled propulsion? Through experimentation. Progress requires patience. Also, digestive fortitude." He ushered them through drills. angle of attack, weight distribution via paper clips, sold on site for a suspicious markup, and the philosophical benefits of glide ratios. Around them, a carpet of failed prototypes accumulated. By dusk, morale sagged lower than Sir Bromley's dented plume. Still, no one left. Quitting would mean forfeiting the hefty tuition, and Farnax's refund policy had more teeth than he did. Day 2 dawned. Farnax introduced Live Fire Lunch, in which students attempted to pass their planes through the dragon's flame plume without combusting. Farnax demonstrated. His dart pirouetted through the inferno unscathed, landing elegantly in Myrtle's teacup. The crowd applauded despite themselves. Hope ignited, briefly until the first student try. Sir Bromley's heavier parchment ignited mid-arc, splattering ash like disgruntled snow. The gnome design spun and thumped Farnax on the snout. He raised one eyebrow ridge but refrained from turning anyone into a kebab. Incremental improvement arrived, though. By afternoon, at least half the class had planes that could survive 3 seconds of fire. The other half formed a support group called the Charcoal Coalition. That evening, beneath stars twinkling like spilled diamonds, the students gathered around the cavern's courtyard fire pit, strictly ornamental. Greta produced a jar of luminous beetles to provide lighting. Myrtle offered scones. Grievances poured out. False advertising, psychological wing envy, unexpected bake sale requirements. Professor Quill, however, stunned them by declaring, "I ran calculations." The dragon's methods, while unorthodox, aligned with low Reynolds number aerodynamics. We are learning, albeit at scale. He tapped his notes. Also, he refunded my maple deposit upon request of scientific grant reclassification. The contract allows one loophole. The others stared, digesting that revelation, along with Myrtle's blueberry glaze. Strategy shifted from mutiny to maximizing return on investment. If they couldn't force Farnax to deliver hot air balloon rides, they would at least master the art of paper conquest. The next morning, they arrived armed with upgraded supplies, linen parchment, enchanted ink that self-aligns along airflow, and, for the gnomes, aluminum foils stolen from a bakery. Farnax blinked, pleasantly surprised. "Ah, initiative! That will be on the test." Lessons accelerated. The dragon introduced barrel roll folds, elevon crimps, and the advanced dragon spine, a serrated dorsal seam that sliced through buffeting gusts. He set up wind tunnels made from his own exhalations, cool breath, to prevent Barbary tragedies. Greta, ever competitive, rigged rubber band catapults for launch. Sir Bromley discovered that when he removed half his armor, he could throw without dislocating his shoulder. The remaining plates he repurposed as an adjustable runway. Myrtle embroidered her planes with motivational slogans like "Believe and Retrieve," which allegedly reduced drag by uplifting the morale of the molecules. Even Farnax felt a thawing inside his calcified chestplate of pride. The little creatures were trying, really trying. He found himself offering genuine feedback instead of smug one-liners. He told Quill his dihedral angle adjustments were adequately intelligent. He granted Greta a polished scale as a merit badge for distance. He even babysat Myrtle's youngest offspring, who had scampered up the cliff to watch, by letting them toboggan down his tail. Yet disappointment still smoldered under the surface. Every evening, students watched swallows wheeling freely overhead and sighed. Paper success was sweet. Actual flight would be sweeter. They whispered rumors. Perhaps Farnax was physically unable to carry passengers. Some thought him lazy. Others suspected a bureaucratic restriction. Professor Quill, emboldened by data, approached the dragon one twilight, while the meadow bathed in amber light. "Master Farnax," he ventured, "all jest aside, might we inquire why you declined to teach full-scale lift?" The dragon's nostrils steamed. "Because," he said at last, voice low, "I fear heights." Quill's quill, he carried a ceremonial feather, slipped from his grasp. "Pardon." Farnax looked away. "Mock me if you must. Vertical displacement is fine. I enjoy perching. But prolonged airborne exposure, wings flapping, nothing beneath, you call it freedom. I call it existential vulnerability. Even dragons have nightmares." The confession drifted across the grass like unexpected dew. For a moment, no one laughed. Then Greta murmured, "Blimey, a sky beast with vertigo." Instead of ridicule, empathy sprouted. Myrtle patted the dragon's talon. Sir Bromley removed his helmet in reverence and to relieve the damp smell. Quill cleared his throat. "Your candor honors us. Perhaps what you teach is not flight of body, but courage of concept." Farnax snorted. "Please. I'm trying to maintain comedic detachment, but the truth changed everything. The students redoubled their efforts, partly to justify tuition, but also to gift their instructor the one thing he lacked: confidence in the sky. They proposed a final exhibition to demonstrate mastery, and hopefully coax Farnax aloft in solidarity." The dragon agreed. On one condition: he would participate only from the ground, serving as runway marshal. The class pretended to accept, already plotting otherwise. Preparations consumed a week. Greta fashioned a 2-meter stunt craft using lacquered parchment reinforced with dragon shed scales, bartered, not stolen. Myrtle formed a cargo plane variant able to carry a basket of scones mid-air. Sir Bromley constructed a folding broadsword wing hybrid that looked illegal in 7 kingdoms. The gnomes, ever literal, built a fortress bomber whose only payload was confetti. Professor Quill engineered a glider the size of a dinner table, complete with adjustable spoilers. On exhibition day, townsfolk flocked to the meadow, lured by posters proclaiming "Skyward Spectacular, no one guaranteed to die." Stalls sold dragon-themed pastries, flame and apple turnovers, singed marshmallow wands, and local bards tuned lutes, anticipating ballads of triumph or comedic disaster. A dwarven regulatory team arrived to audit safety but became distracted by funnel cake. Farnax, wearing a sash that read Flight Director, called for silence. His baritone rattled tankards. "Competitors, to the launch stripe!" The stripe was, in fact, his tail, painted with white chalk. One by one, paper aircraft sailed. Greta's stunt craft executed tight barrel rolls, earning gasps and a spontaneous goblin cheer. Myrtle's cargo plane delivered scones to a distant haystack, where her children pounced like pastry-hunting leopards. Sir Bromley's broadsword wing zipped a record distance before spearing the funnel cake tent. No casualties, plenty of powdered sugar fallout. The gnome's fortress bomber released confetti over the mayor, who assumed it was pre-planned civic pride and waved regally. Finally, Professor Quill stepped forward with his grand glider, the epistemological kite. It required 2 assistants just to hold the wings while Quill adjusted trim tabs made of cinnamon bark. Whispers rippled. Could a paper craft that big even lift from a hand throw? Quill didn't intend to hand throw. He addressed Farnax. "Director, request permission for talent-assisted launch." Farnax blinked. "You want me to—" "What? Catapult it?" "Precisely. A gentle loft with your right foreclaw. Low angle, steady follow-through." Reluctantly, Farnax complied. He gripped the glider between thumb and forefinger, surprised by its lightness. Students and townsfolk held breath. "On 3, Quill called. 1, 2, 3. Farnax flicked upward. The glider caught a warm-up draft and began to climb, wings flexing gracefully. Cheers erupted. Quill danced in place. The kite ascended still higher, circling like a silver trout in a blue pond. It was, objectively, beautiful, and Farnax forgot to be afraid. Without thinking, he leapt, wings snapping open. 2 strokes, and he was airborne beside the glider, matching its spiral. From the meadow, open mouths gawked. A hush fell, broken only by a distant gnome hollering, "He's doing it, mates!" Farnax realized what he'd done halfway through a banking turn. Panic fluttered, then ebbed, replaced by a thrill deeper than molten gold. The sky didn't feel empty, it felt spacious. Papercraft and dragon rode the same currents, equals in defiance of gravity. Down below, Greta grabbed a megaphone, borrowed from town criers. "Farnax the Flighty, show us a loop!" The crowd roared agreement. Farnax hesitated, then tucked his wings, plummeted, and shot back up in a glorious loop-de-loop. The glider mimicked him, purely by physics, tracing a synchronized arc. Children squealed. Sir Bromley shed an emotional tear that rusted his visor. After several triumphant passes, Farnax escorted the glider to a gentle landing atop a hay bale, then touched down himself, knees shaking only a little. The meadow exploded in applause, stomping, tail wagging, whatever appendages creatures had. Professor Quill approached, eyes shining. "You, sir, have passed your own course." Farnax puffed smoke rings, shaped like hearts. "Purely accidental," he claimed, "all part of the curriculum." Even the dwarven auditors clapped, though they simultaneously cited Farnax for lacking a Class C aerial performance permit. Paperwork could wait, victory was airborne tonight. A feast followed. Myrtle's children handed out sky-delivered scones. Greta sold miniature replicas of her stuntcraft. The gnomes entertained by parachuting beetles wearing confetti capes. Sir Bromley jousted imaginary foes, proclaiming that chivalry now included stationery proficiency. Near midnight, as lanterns bobbed like fireflies tethered to laughter, Farnax gathered his students. "I opened this school to make gold and feed my ego," he confessed. "Instead, I gained something rarer: perspective." "Also gold," Greta reminded. "True, but I shall invest it back into the academy." New motto: "Flight is a state of fold." Professor Quill produced certificates, hand-lettered on aerodynamic cardstock, declaring each participant an ace, aerial crease engineer. Farnax signed with a claw tip dipped in moonlight ink. The graduates posed for a group portrait atop the dragon's forearm, which shook only slightly from residual adrenaline. In the weeks that followed, the Soar Like a Dragon Academy reinvented itself. The brochure now read, "Master the sky. Whether your wings are feathered, membranous, or folded." Farnax added advanced courses: origami ornithopters, siege-proof paper parachutes, and therapeutic flight fear counseling. He was the sole patient, but the stipend was generous. Enrollment tripled. Even dwarves signed up after discovering parchment could be folded into surprisingly aerodynamic replicas of beer steins. And whenever a new cohort arrived, expecting disappointment, Farnax greeted them with a grid full of ember-lit promise. "Welcome, future aviators. First we fold, later maybe we fly together. Any questions?" He would unfurl his wings, cast a gleaming shadow, and watch hope rise on faces below, exactly like a well-thrown paper plane catching the perfect current climbing toward impossible blue. Because once you've conquered one kind of sky, what's left to fear? Only the untold stories still waiting to be folded, creased, and launched. But that, Farnax assured his students, was the fun part.